Welcome to the Covert Investigation channel. Here I have another story for you, which I do hope you will enjoy. I would also like to thank you for your interest in my channel, as it's very much appreciated. And if you like the story, could you please like and ring the bell, as it helps the channel to grow. Thank you once again, and here's hoping you like the story.
A Scottish forestry worker in 1979 saw something unusual in the woods that made headlines around the world. The man had been carrying out his regular duties in the forest that day when he came across what he could only describe as a spaceship in a clearing. He described the ship as being 30 foot high and dome-shaped, explaining how two spiked spheres dropped from the craft and rolled along the ground toward him. As he fell to the ground, he started to lose consciousness. He felt aware of something grabbing his legs and could smell burning. When he woke up about 20 minutes later, feeling nauseous, his trousers had been ripped in several places. The clearing was now empty, and the craft had gone. But he saw strange marks in the ground where it once stood. Feeling dazed as he returned to his car, he unfortunately drove into a ditch. He then got out of the car, stumbled home, and his wife called the police. They treated his ripped clothing and minor injuries seriously, as one of the more unusual cases of their career, of a vicious attack from aliens. The man was a pillar of the community, a respected war hero. He didn't drink and was a regular churchgoer. He was also well-liked, and no one had any reason to doubt he believed he had seen something. He never wavered from his version of events and swore by every detail for the rest of his life. The police were baffled by the marks on the forest floor. They could see something that weighed several tons had stood there for a time. But there was no indication it had been dragged or driven away. It could only have flown or been lifted into the air. Ufologists agree this to be one of the few cases in the world that utterly defy explanation. As far back as in Paleolithic and Neolithic cave paintings, there is evidence of humans glimpsing objects in the sky that they didn't understand. However, it was in Roman times that the documentation of such events became more formal. Considered the first written mention of a UFO sighting in 218 BC, the historian Livy wrote about phantom ships seen gleaming in the sky. However, modern historians and ufologists are torn over whether his writings were literal or metaphorical. In 74 BC, the biographer and essayist Plutarch described some very unusual aerial activity above a battlefield, writing, "With no apparent change of weather, the sky burst asunder, and a huge flame-like body was seen to fall between the two armies. In shape it was most like a wine jar, and in color like molten silver. The flaming UFO was witnessed by thousands on the battlefield, including the king himself." In the 1st century AD, the ancient scholar Titus Flavius Josephus witnessed something so unbelievable, he felt the need to apologize for relaying it, thinking all who heard the tale would consider it a fable. As he explained, he had seen chariots and armed battalions hurtling through the clouds and encompassing the cities. Some ufologists believe otherworldly beings visited ancient communities and advised them on how to build cities or successfully grow crops, theorizing that these alien beings were often interpreted as gods by those with whom they communicated. In Melbourne, Australia, in 1966, more than 300 school children, teachers, and staff witnessed multiple UFOs that landed in a nearby field. The craft allegedly moved silently across the sky before resting close to the schoolyard. Conspiracy theorists believe the details of the encounter have been kept under wraps for years, possibly due to the crafts being part of a government testing program. One child ran into the school, shouting that there was a flying saucer outside. The child was insistent, so other pupils and some staff members trickled outside to take a look. The eyewitnesses claimed to have seen a round silver object, as big as a car, with a metal antenna hovering close to the power lines. What they saw next was extraordinary. 5 planes surrounded the UFO and edged closer. However, if they got too close to the craft, it would accelerate and move in the opposite direction, then abruptly stop. When the planes attempted to approach it again, the same thing would happen, much like a game of airborne cat and mouse. This went on for around 20 minutes as the spectators watched in awe. Then, without warning, the UFO sped away and vanished. The children were sent back to class and allegedly later warned not to speak of what they had seen, or they would be punished. And staff were told they would lose their jobs if they did not keep quiet. Nuremberg in the 1560s, which is now part of Germany. Back then, it was an independent city-state in the Holy Roman Empire. City dwellers were treated to an out-of-this-world light show. They watched in awe as the sky lit up with unusual objects darting around in what they described as a battle. According to eyewitness reports, the objects were shaped like triangles, spheres, crosses, cylinders, spears, and moons. They moved at great speed, dodging and crashing into one another, until there was a huge bang and the sky fell quiet. The incident over Nuremberg is considered the largest mass sighting of its kind, witnessed as it was by countless residents looking up from the city below. A woodcut engraving from the time featured a description of the remarkable incident. They all started to fight among themselves, so that the globes, which were first in the sun, flew out to the ones standing on both sides. Thereafter, the globes standing outside the sun, in the small and large rods, flew into the Sunday. Besides, the globes flew back and forth among themselves and fought vehemently with each other for over an hour. And when the conflict was most intense, they became fatigued to such an extent that they all fell from the sun down upon the earth, as if they all burned, and they then wasted away on the earth with immense smoke. In September of 1977, while the USSR was in the throes of the Cold War with the US and its allies, in the early hours of the morning, the citizens of Petrozavodsk in northwest Russia were treated to a spectacular light show. Witnesses recounted a luminescent object that filled the night sky with light, raining down beams of light to take the form of a jellyfish. Many who saw the display were terrified and immediately took cover, believing they were under attack and that the unusual lights were in fact the fallout of the much-dreaded nuclear apocalypse. Some residents reported coin-sized holes appearing in their window panes following the incident. Remarkably, UFO sightings were reported from various locations in Europe that same night in a similar time window. Residents claimed to have seen strange glowing lights over multiple Russian cities, as well as those in Lithuania and Finland. The light show in Petrozavodsk, however, was the most dramatic. While officials put the Petrozavodsk display down to the atmospheric effects of a satellite launch, others were quick to defend what they had seen and noted that the UFO light show had traveled in a westerly direction, whereas the satellites were always launched to the east. The fact that the reports of strange activity that night were so widespread only reinforced the believers' argument that many had in fact witnessed extraterrestrial activity.
Welcome back. If you liked the story and would like some more, could you please subscribe, like, and ring the bell, as there will be more stories to come. And once again, thank you for your interest in my channel. It's very much appreciated.